No, that's wonderful. I was wondering, when was your first exposure to the genre?
That's a good question. I think, very early on as a child, I guess. I saw the first thing actually was my mother was in a book club, and in that book club you would also be able to buy videos for VHS cassettes of the Freddy Krueger films, and I would always be very afraid of these pages because I would always just flip through the book club catalog, seeing if there might be something that interests me, little 7-year-old guy. But then there would always be that page with this like pizza face, and I would be very scared of just the imagery. But there was always this thing of just flipping through, always trying to not flip open that page, but still sort of, whenever you got close to it, sort of still having that fascination of actually looking at it, looking at the face of the monster. So that was maybe my very first exposure to these sorts of things, like the nightmarish genres or whatever. And then, I guess it just developed quite naturally, being alone at home, watching Jaws on television, stuff like that, and then finding out that I'm actually quite fond of being scared, or quite fond of not knowing what happens next in a film and feeling rattled, So I think there's always been this sort of fascination with things that frighten me. Also, not just in terms of genres and films, but also, for example, most of my films, they take place in the countryside. And I'm a city boy, actually. I'm from Berlin, so also these are places that sort of frighten me. I have always been afraid by the open air, insects, stuff like that. But at the same time, I was always very fascinated by these little villages and the nature and stuff. So it's always twofold with me. This sort of contradiction of actually being afraid of facing something and still being very much drawn to it and very fascinated by it. Yeah.
How did the two actors come about being cast in your film, especially the wolf character? It's a very brave performance for a very young actor.
So. I think so. You should tell him that. I think, and I think he just has this. At first there's his face, and with the cleft upper lip, and I think there's something very brutal and also aggressive about his whole demeanor. Let's see how he is when you talk to him, because he's actually a very nice guy. But
nice.
And it just sort of challenged me when I first met him. Also, that he's not. Actors tend to be very friendly towards directors, And he's not really like that. He sort of likes to challenge you in a way. I think it's like a sort of fuck you attitude. So if you don't want me, I don't need to play for you. It's this sort of thing. And I think this is very, very nice to be challenged like that as a director. And at the same time, I think he's very brave and he wants to be seen in outrageous ways. So he's a very good collaborator for that kind of thing, even though it's not always easy to actually then on set get him to go all the way. But
as a child, I had a lot of surgeries, and it wasn't clear that I would become an actor. As you see, I have this little thing in my face. And the first time I met Till, it was really not clear that I would become an actor at all. It was really that my face had that kind of certain quality to play a villain like that, as now a couple years later, that wasn't present at all. So I was very unexperienced. I was, and it was the first time I've ever done a serious movie or something that, and I already had to play back then. I had already play perform sex scenes in front of 70 people or something. It was a lot to me. It was, but of course, he's Anna, Linus, and Till are equally responsible for the way my career has developed. They have always written interesting characters that are very very rare in Germany, and they have always seen something in myself, in me, and that's something I'm really grateful for.
It touches you in the very in your very inside. You know what I mean? It's something. Hey Otto, how are you doing? No, it's fine. What I was saying is fairy tales are a very dark thing that are very that touch a kind of fear inside you, maybe a very childish fear also of feeling alone and lost in the dark and this kind of stuff. I think although it might be a childish kind of theme, the fairy tales, but they still touch all of us, and I think that's great, and that should always be part of a movie. So I think it's great that this movie's been made, and I hope that more of these kind of stories will come up in the future.